Hey there, Soul Warriors. Ever had a boss who always seemed to be on a power trip? Or have you watched a movie where some unjust king or queen was sitting on the throne, making all these decisions that leave you questioning their authority? Well, buckle up because in today's video, we're diving deep into the Sovereign Archetype. We're going to look at all those moments when authority figures abuse their power and then draw the parallels into our own lives. This is a journey from frustrations, mistrusting authority, all the way to empowering and reclaiming your own sovereignty. So stick around because we're going to unravel all these threads that tie the experiences together and discover how understanding this archetype can lead us to a more empowered and authentic way of living. So let's kick things off with a real, honest exploration. Are you ready? Let's roll.
That's a lot to unpack.
That is a lot to unpack.
Oh my.
So we've all been taught from very little to mistrust authority figures, to be afraid of them, to just dislike them, not want to be them, which keeps you small, keeps you from standing up and being in a position of authority. Or we've all seen the movies where that unjust king and queen that we were just talking about is like power hungry, only caring about themselves, not listening to their subjects, not truly serving, which was what a sovereign is meant to do.
Yeah.
So what does this do? Disconnects you from your power.
That is true. That is true. I mean, I know that for me, I wasn't so much about disliking authority, or I'm speaking directly to police. It was more about being careful around them, watching what you say, make sure you don't make any sudden moves or anything like that, because culturally and, being Puerto Rican and all that stuff, when you get stopped by the police, you got to mind your P's and Q's if you don't, otherwise it could go south real quickly. So I was always taught to be very, very careful, which that definitely can be considered as me giving away my power or subduing it a little bit. So
right,
it's crazy. It's crazy how that works.
Yeah, we don't even realize that in all the movies and all the, books we've read and, just work in general. You get the worker's mindset where everybody's, or a poverty mindset where, you can't trust the rich people. They're only out for themselves. You can't trust the boss. They don't understand what we're going through. Like all these things that we say and subconsciously we believe and we've embodied.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps a lot of us from growing into the level of a leader, or people who get into leadership just because they've been there for a very long time, but they have no idea how to be a leader. Right. They were just a good worker, and maybe they rallied around the troops a lot, so they were able to get to that point, but then they don't know how to really listen to everybody.
Right.
Let's jump this into what sovereign really means. You don't know how to listen to yourself. You don't know how to stand in your power because in your head, being in your power is something to mistrust. So that breaks your confidence. That gives you some inner mistrust of yourself where you're not having faith in your decisions. So you can see how this translates.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because when I've always thought that I've been in my power. It was something that for me was a given. Never really giving it any thought that some of the things that I did to modify my behavior, to modify my words, anything like that was me giving away my power. And when I got to the point where I realized that's what I was doing, I was just like, what the heck is all this about? Quickly changed a lot of that without ever disrespecting anyone, obviously, because that's just not my gig. But when you're in your sovereignty, there is and being a leader, it's all about uplifting the people around you. It's being in a balanced place within yourself where you can lead, and it's about the collective happiness also, so that you can be productive. Like when I was a manager, for me being a boss, it was all about my managers. I didn't micromanage. I would let them do whatever they needed to do, trusted that they were doing what they were doing, and when they didn't, we would have a conversation. It wasn't about me pointing my finger, blah 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 blah. with some of the employees, I had to be a little bit more stern, and say this isn't a democracy right now. This is something I need done, kind of thing. But I did it in a respectful way, never diminishing their power, never taking away their power and their supervision of the overall things. And so I like that. I like that I did that.
So 3 things I want to reference from what you just said. The first thing is you thought you were always in your power, and then you realize new levels of it. So we just did a video a few weeks ago on the 5 stages of spiritual awakening, which we'll link above in case you want to check that out. It's been really helpful to a lot of people because people are like just trying to get to stage 5, to, the homecoming of being awakened. And they think it's like this linear journey upwards. And sovereignty, same thing. Your spirituality, same thing. Discovering parts about you. You're doing awesome and you're standing in your power to the level in that moment. But then something else will come upon you to like, oh, I'm unveiling a new level of where I was programmed, or old beliefs I didn't even realize I was subconsciously following, so that you can start to dismantle those. So there's always a more full way you can step into your power. There's always another cycle of the spiritual stages of awakening that you can go through to continue to evolve and elevate yourself. So that was the first thing. The second thing you mentioned, I hope I'm getting these right, was the collective and the happiness of all, and how you contribute to the collective. So when you're standing in your sovereign power, you're being the ruler and the leader over yourself, over your internal kingdom. All the parts of yourself and all your energy are all your subjects that you're ruling.
Right.
But hopefully, like you said, as a manager that was very compassionate, very empathetic, knew when to be direct, knew when to loosen the reins and trust the people you have around you. So this is trusting all the parts of yourselves, but knowing when to say, no ego, I hear you and I get you're trying to keep me safe. Thank you for that input, duly considered. But this is what we're doing right now, and we need to all work together to do this. So you're doing that for yourself so that you can be balanced and stable and come from a place of peace and freedom. And then you're exuding that, adding that into the collective energy. And we know energy, affects whatever's around it. Yeah. So that vibe is starting to go out to change the collective whole of things.
Right. I had my fair share of people, of bosses or colleagues that were power tripping.
Yeah.
And I realized that I didn't like the way that felt when it was geared towards me. And I sure as heck wasn't going to put it on my employees.
Exactly.
So I did everything opposite of what was being done to me. Because it's like, that doesn't feel good. So I can't imagine me going and then doing it to my employees and then thinking that I'm a good leader. No, that's not, you don't take away or try to take away or minimize somebody's power or ability to do their job, that kind of thing. So yeah, I had my fair share of those types of bosses or colleagues, and didn't like it.
And that's the perfect thing. Like, use things not to, if you don't like them, you don't emulate them. Use them as a mirror to be like, okay, I'm seeing this and I don't like that, so I'm going to do something different. I do like this, I'm going to adopt that. Not like, I've been taught that this is how a boss is, or this is how my boss was, so I'm going to be an asshole, I'm going to be, whatever. I'm going to be power trippy. That's the shadow side of sovereign.
Yeah.
So you can look at those people with some sense of compassion, because they're trying to be the type of leader that they've been shown and taught subconsciously. They don't even realize they're playing out a program.
Yeah.
They just think that that's what a boss is, and that's what they just have something that needs to lift and shift for them. So by you being in your power, again, that's helping put that energy out and shifting the collective. That person might not change because of you that you can see, but it leaves an imprint.
Right. I mean, and I think that when you're dancing with the sovereign parts of yourself, you ask yourself, does this make me feel good? Is this fair? Is this honest? Is this something that will benefit everyone, including myself? You start to ask yourself these types of questions so that you're really sitting in a place where of not so much of, ego tripping power, but more of the, okay, what can I learn here, even though I'm the leader? because we all have something to learn. It doesn't matter what status you're holding. If you think you don't have anything to learn from anybody around you, you're in deep shit. Because we're always learning. So when you approach any type of sovereignty, leadership, or anything like that, get curious. Again, can't impress upon you enough how being curious gives you pause and the ability to work from a really high vibration. Yeah.
Well said. Because a true sovereign, the archetype, is interested in growth and expansion. So how are you expanding your kingdom, which again is your inner landscape? So how are you expanding that? How are you learning? How are you growing? How are you evolving? And how is that then filtering out? This is a true sovereign. So you can start replacing those definitions that you've had just hard-coded in the back of your brain so that you can have more confidence. You can rise up in your community, in your family, your friend structure, your relationships, being seen differently and being felt differently because you're showing up differently.
Yeah.
This is all within your power to shift, and the sovereign archetype is where it's at.
It kind of mimics a little bit of the warrior archetype too. It has a lot of those elements to it, because I was relating to a lot of the keeping your word, honor, dignity, and all those things, unity, just even though you're representing that leadership, you're also being humble, at the same time. And I run my life based upon how I feel.
Right.
And if it feels good, I'm going with that. And if I know that if I'm feeling good, it's going to make somebody else feel good. So anything that feels yucky, you've hit something that you should not entertain.
That's where you're misaligned.
Exactly. So being in your sovereignty is balance and peace within you, so that you're emanating that out to everybody else, and they can see that, they can feel that, and they can respect that and honor that, and then they want to do more. And then if it pushes a button, it'll trigger them to be more aware. Why did I feel that when that person said X, Y, and Z? Why did I react that way? Am I really in my power, or did I just hung a left when I should have hung a right?
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. You get to really feel yourself out. And when you're in your sovereignty, and peace and balance is the number one thing with that. Because then you can interact with other people in a very nice way.
Right, exactly. So the two main guiding principles of the sovereign is service and wisdom. And this is where you're going to get stability and vision from. So let's dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
Because rulers are supposed to serve their subjects. We've always heard that. Just like a boss is supposed to, we weren't taught this, but they're supposed to serve the people that work under them. They're supposed to provide them with structure, with direction, with managing like an overview of everything, so they can help people do a better job and know what is priority. And that is really vital. Like, if you're a worker and you don't know, what's most important right now, then, you're kind of like, you could be rowing in the wrong direction.
Right.
You really need that guidance. That's what managers are there for. That's what bosses are there for. So if you're serving, say, yourself, you're showing up for yourself in a way of, how am I taking care of myself? How am I prioritizing education and growth? How am I surrounding myself by a good advisory board internally and around you?
Right.
Like, who do you call, who do you look up to that's been in a leadership position, or the best boss, your favorite teacher, maybe somebody online, your favorite YouTube channel that you always go to because you get some piece of wisdom that helps shift you or helps guide you or more realign you. I'd like to say.
I go to my best friend first of all, because I know that she's going to be real with me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. She's not going to tell me shit I want to hear. She's going to tell me what I need to hear.
Yeah.
And so when you're when you're in a leadership role or in a relationship or anything like that, having someone in your life that you can totally be open with and not get pissed off if they're telling you what you're saying, you're being an asshole. Don't get pissed off, because right there is when you're supposed to say, okay, I need to look at that. I need to take a look at that, and you do that for me as well, So it's like, that for me is a big thing, having someone that you can trust that they will tell you what you need to hear.
Exactly. And you always have, like, if you see kings and queens, they have advisors that come in and tell them, this is the mood of the people, this is the pulse on what's happening in the community, these are the places where most attention is needed right now. So I'll go to you, depending on what the topic is. Some things I go to my mom. Other things I will, like for spiritual things, I go to Kyle Cease. Look up his channel if you haven't, because it's amazing. Because he speaks in a way where I know he is there to serve, and I know as he is open, and I hope that we emulate that as much as possible, because this man has really helped ground me into different parts of me and help me evolve.
Yeah. For me, I think on a business, spiritual, personal, has been Gary Vee for me.
Oh, Gary Vaynerchuk, business-wise.
The way this man carries his life in general, business, personal, is right up my alley.
Absolutely.
I love everything about it. He doesn't flaunt his shit, but he's very humble. He's very kind, and that's kind of he's all about kindness and and empathy and taking responsibility and pointing the finger at yourself versus out here. I love all that part.
That's a huge Sovereign piece. Is he always says, and shout out to Gary Vee, he always says that he takes responsibility for everything, and he has a bunch of million dollar businesses, multiple of them, and tons of friends and family
of employees and
exactly
family,
and he says everything is my fault. I'm the boss, I'm the owner, this is my kingdom, everything that goes wrong is my fault, even the lowest rung on the ladder, although he considers everybody equally important, because it's all cogs of the wheel. The smallest screw in a machine needs to be there or it doesn't work, and he respects and honors that. But he says everything is his fault, because if he takes that in, that it's his fault, then he has control to fix it, instead of the blame and the pointing the finger, which is energy leaking, and we want to again stay in our power.
And I think in the Sovereign Archetype, communication is also a big factor. How you communicate effectively is important, and not as screaming at somebody or being reactive, but real serious, honest communication. Like Gary was talking about how his flaw was that he didn't know how to effectively communicate with some of his employees because they were his friends, that kind of thing. And when he learned how to be honest about the work ethic and all those things, and really get into some raw, honest communication, that's when it turned around for him.
Exactly.
And we've always talked about honest, raw communication, respectfully.
Exactly.
It can be done.
It can be kind candor, he calls it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I don't want any of us to forget, part of our advisory board, your spiritual guides, angels, whatever beings that you talk to, connect to, and the universal energy itself, the Akashic records, like all of those things, you have access to all this unlimited wisdom and information, seen and unseen. So let's not forget that as part of our tapping in.
I mean, that's my go-to.
And your number one, your soul. Yeah. That has the blueprint for everything you need to do. So, I mean, your soul, really stepping into your soul self, is stepping into your sovereignty.
Yeah, because when I'm on an edge or something is not right within me, I go within. I do a meditation. I speak to my guides. I do whatever it takes to kind of figure out where the imbalance has occurred and how do I fix it right away.
Exactly.
Because I don't like the feeling. Like I said, I like to feel happy and balanced.
Mm-hmm. And that comes from wisdom. That was the other second thing we were going to talk about, because the wisdom piece of it is starts with the warrior piece where they're going through the battles and they'll run through whatever because, they're committed.
Right.
And once you get through, you realize you're not going to win all the battles. But you can win the war if you're not seeing them as failures. You're just seeing as, okay, that was a bump and that didn't work. And I could have done that better. And I learned this from here. And not getting hung up on the things that aren't working. It's just consistently evolving, improving, taking it in as knowledge and as wisdom. So they have a bigger picture instead of, micro lensing in on the thing that went wrong and letting that trip them up and chip away at your internal confidence, your internal trust and faith. And instead, it's just like, okay, that's another wisdom nugget. And then you can come from just a more balanced, peaceful place. And that also feeds into your vision. So what are your dreams? What are you willing, because it means that much to you, you're willing to take those risks. You're willing to have those failures, those bumps in the road, those battles lost, because it's getting you to what feels good for you, what lights you up, what your true passion is. What do you truly love, and how do you move towards that?
Right. I like the thing here. You are the harmonizing force, both internal and external. That's the bottom line. You get to decide. If you're working from your sovereignty, there is a peace, there is a harmony, there is a knowing, and we've said this many times before, that is where you want to work from, because that really sets the tone.
Exactly. And that is the stability piece that we're talking about. Because when you have harmony internally and you can make decisive, like, I'm going to decide this and I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to second guess myself. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to move forward. And the discipline and leadership to start executing instead of like, okay, I'm just going to sit in my Zen place and hope it manifests because, I'm in a good vibration, but you're not putting any action behind it. Leaders take action, or they execute parts of themselves or people in their community to help them have this action piece go behind things. So if you're having trouble manifesting, it's probably because your sovereign piece is not at play and is not guiding what you already know internally that you've tapped into with, your magician and your sage archetypes.
Yep.
They all have to work together in harmony, like you said, when you're in that power place.
Yeah.
So these are some questions you can ask yourself. How do you see this archetype in yourself? I mean, hopefully something that we said, we'd love for you to comment below, like what part really stood out for you and spoke to you, because that just helps you like think about it a little more and hard code that energy in so you're really feeling it and evolving from it. Do you struggle with a shadow side? Are there parts where you're feeling a little bit like, all that in a bag of chips, but then you're kind of taking it to the next level and being a little too egoic and not that humble part that you were talking about.
Right.
That's that common thread of all the different archetypes. And then what gifts of the sovereign do you want to bring to the table? Like, do you need more confidence? Do you need more direction? Do you need to be able to make more informed decisions because you're gathering all that wisdom? So I don't know if that's going to work, but I'm going to take that risk. And I think that's my best option. That's where my gut's pulling me towards. That's what my wisdom and my heart is pulling me towards. So that's where I'm going. And I can adjust at any time whenever I need to.
Exactly.
So sovereigns, they create that healthy, safe place for themselves. They create it for people around them. So look for other people in their sovereign power around you and, pat yourself on the back when you're able to sit in that energy so that we can all start linking arms up together because there is enough space for all of us. This is no more that whoever's the biggest dog wins type of thing. We can all be big dogs and we can all run in a pack together.
Yeah. So the next time you come across somebody in their sovereign power and you are feeling triggered, please pause. Ask yourself why. Because that person is challenging you to get up to their level. Tap into your sovereignty and match that, because we're all equal here. Yeah. We all have the same abilities. So, don't react, get curious and ask yourself, why is this triggering me right now?
Exactly.
Somebody being in their sovereign power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if they're not in their sovereign power, if they're in their shadow side, look at that too.
Yeah.
Don't react. Get curious. All these things are just cues of the universe mirroring back to us on how we can. I'm going to model with that. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to have compassion here. I don't need to judge. I just need to, I'm gathering pieces of information. Yeah. It's shifting into a very different energy. That's where that sovereign, you see people who are just rulers or a great boss. They just sit in their power. And our little tiny cat is agreeing and saying it's time to wrap it up. So please step into your power. Stand there strong. Know you're going to fall in and out of it. We are coming, little. We love our cat. And we love all of you, soul warriors.
Be kind.
Peace.